Do you know that hierarchy of controls is the most important tool you need to know as a safety professional? So, see this video until the end, and for sure you will understand it. Before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and smash that like button, that will help a lot. We can find much more safety information in our channel and in our site hsebox.com. Thank you. Let's start to take a look at employer duties. As an employer, you have a duty under the Occupational Health and Safety to eliminate risks to health and safety, so far as is reasonably practicable. If it is not reasonably practicable to eliminate risks to health and safety, you must reduce those risks, so far as is reasonably practicable. The hierarchy of controls helps employers fulfill their occupational health and safety responsibilities. In line with the occupational health and safety, the hierarchy of control first instructs employers to eliminate hazards and risks. If employers cannot eliminate hazards and risks, then they must work through the hierarchy and select the controls that most effectively reduce the risk. Reducing the risk may involve introducing a single risk control or a combination of two or more different controls. For example, protecting employees and others from flying debris when using a concrete cutting saw may involve isolating the work area, guarding the saw blade, and using PPE such as face shields. When determining the most effective and reasonably practicable risk control, consider the time needed to introduce the control and whether it is necessary to introduce temporary risk control measures while preparing the preferred control. In some cases, it might be necessary to stop the activity until you can put an appropriate risk control measure in place. Controlling exposures to occupational hazards is the fundamental method of protecting workers. Traditionally, a hierarchy of controls has been used as a means of determining how to implement feasible and effective control solutions. The idea behind this hierarchy is that the control methods at the top of the graphic are potentially more effective and protective than those at the bottom. Following this hierarchy normally leads to the implementation of inherently safer systems, where the risk of illness or injury has been substantially reduced. 1. Elimination.
Elimination, while most effective at reducing hazards, also tend to be the most difficult to implement in an existing process. If the process is still at the design or development stage, elimination and substitution of hazards may be inexpensive and simple to implement. For an existing process, major changes in equipment and procedures may be required to eliminate or substitute for a hazard. Eliminating hazards can be cheaper and more practical at the design or planning stage of a product, process, or workplace. In these early stages, there is more scope to design to eliminate hazards or to include risk control measures that are compatible with the requirements of the original design and function. Employers can also eliminate hazards and risks by removing the hazard completely. For example, removing trip hazards on the floor or disposing of unwanted chemicals eliminates the risks they create. It may not be possible to eliminate a hazard if doing so means you are unable to make the end product or deliver the service. If it is not possible to eliminate the hazard, then you must eliminate as many of the risks associated with the hazard as possible. A commonly used example of eliminating a hazard is a situation in which employees are working at a height above ground level. Moving the work to ground level eliminates the fall hazard. Hazards may be eliminated by changing how or where the work is done. For example, by eliminating a step in the process that involves a hazardous material. They may also be eliminated by redesigning a process to eliminate the use of hazardous equipment, machines, tools, or materials.
2. Reduce the risk through substitution.
If it is not reasonably practicable to eliminate the hazards and associated risks, minimize the risk by substitution. Substitute the hazard with something safer. For example, use a scourer, mild detergent, and hot water instead of caustic cleaners for cleaning. Use a cordless drill instead of an electric drill if the power cord is in danger of being cut. Use water-based paints instead of solvent-based paints.
3. Engineering controls. Engineering controls are favored over administrative and personal protective equipment, PPE, for controlling existing worker exposures in the workplace because they are designed to remove the hazard at the source before it comes in contact with the worker. Well-designed engineering controls can be highly effective in protecting workers and will typically be independent of worker interactions to provide this high level of protection. The initial cost of engineering controls can be higher than the cost of administrative controls or PPE. But over the longer term, operating costs are frequently lower, and in some instances, can provide cost savings in other areas of the process. An engineering control is a control measure that is physical in nature, including a mechanical device or process. Engineering controls can be achieved by isolating the hazard. Examples of engineering controls include:
use concrete barriers to separate pedestrians and employees from the powered mobile plant. Use remote controls to operate machines. Install guardrails around holes. Mechanical devices such as trolleys or hoists to move heavy loads. Guards around moving parts of machinery. Pedestrian sensing systems. Speed governing mechanisms.
4. Reduce the risk using administrative controls. Administrative controls are work methods or procedures designed to minimize exposure to a hazard. In most cases, administrative controls use systems of work to control the risk. Examples of administrative controls include:
developing procedures on how to operate machinery safely. Limiting exposure time to a hazardous task. Using signs to warn people of a hazard. Provide training to the workforce. Develop policies. Shift designs that lessen the threat of a hazard to an individual. Reduce the number of hours of service for commercial vehicle operators. And regular maintenance of equipment.
5. Reduce the risk of using personal protective equipment, PPE. The final level in the hierarchy of risk control is the use of personal protective equipment, PPE. It's likely that this level will be utilized regardless of what other levels are also being used to control risk. However, it remains at the bottom of the hierarchy as it doesn't remove or reduce the risk itself. Instead, this level is designed around assuming an incident will occur and protecting the employee from harm when it does. PPE refers to anything employees use or wear to minimize risks to their health and safety. PPE includes but is not limited to the following:
earmuffs and earplugs, goggles, respirators, face masks, hard hats, safety harnesses, gloves, aprons, high visibility clothing, protective eyewear, bodysuits, safety footwear, sunscreen. PPE limits exposure to the harmful effects of a hazard but only if employees wear and use the PPE correctly.
Using administrative controls and PPE to reduce risks does not control the hazard at the source. Administrative controls and PPE rely on human behavior and supervision and, used on their own, tend to be least effective in minimizing risks. Use administrative controls and PPE only.
As a last resort when there are no other practical control measures available. As an interim measure until introducing a more effective way of controlling the risk. To increase the effectiveness of higher-level control measures.
How does the hierarchy increase workplace safety? The risk control measures are implemented in a hierarchy in order of their effectiveness at controlling the risk, risk in preventing accident or injury. Risk elimination sits at the top of the hierarchy, as there is no better way to prevent accidents or injuries than completely removing the risk. Following down the hierarchy, isolating a risk completely, for example moving a loud and vibrating machine into a room to be controlled remotely, is better than merely installing some soundproofing, engineering, or limiting employee exposure times. Administrative. Personal protective equipment is a somewhat unique control of the hierarchy, as it is both the least effective, sitting at the bottom, and most commonly used. That is because PPE still leaves the risk uncontrolled. The employee is only personally protected from injury when the risk causes an incident. PPE is unique, though, as it will usually be used in conjunction with whatever other risk control measures have been implemented. It acts as a final line of defense and is also easy and cheap to implement compared to engineering completely new machinery or safeguards, making it perfect to use in addition to other controls. It also offers the additional benefit of protecting the worker from injury resulting from undiscovered risks. Following the hierarchy means that when implementing risk controls measures, you will always implement the most effective, and therefore safest, option before implementing measures that may leave room for an incident to still occur. It is good practice to self-enforce the hierarchy. However, in some jurisdictions, it is also a legal requirement to attempt to eliminate risk before attempting any other control measures. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments section below. We are happy to help you. Check our channel for more safety topics. Never forget, safety is your responsibility. Stay always safe. Bye bye. See you soon.